Like I think about it every so often, and that's how much of an impact it had on me. Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's Kanisha. Today's video is about books. Hopefully you don't turn off the video just a second. But yes, I've been really looking forward to filming this video just to talk about some of the books I've been enjoying in the past and why I think you should check them out if you are interested in doing so. This quarantine time has given us a lot more time to rest, to recuperate, to catch up with things that we haven't done in a very long time, and for some this might even be reading, so hopefully this might give you a few ideas on what to add to your reading list when you next get some new books. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight into the video. So the first one that I'm going to be talking about is by Tomi Adeyemi, and it's called Children of Virtue and Vengeance. This is actually the sequel to her debut novel, Children of Blood and Bone, that she released, I believe, in 2018. Yeah, so 2018, and it literally picks up where the last one ended. It's a fantasy book and it follows the story of a young girl called Zelly who lives in a land called Orisha, and for her people, so she's part of a group called the Magi people, and they used to have magic in a time that Zelly kind of remembers. I think she was a lot younger when magic disappeared from her people. And so the first book follows what her journey is like, trying to bring back magic to her people as she's joined on this adventure with her brother and a new friend that she meets along the way. Of course, like any other adventure, it's not smooth sailing, so things start to happen to them. The second book here follows straight after that, and we see what the consequences of the end of the first book were like, and Zelly and the other characters as they navigate this new part of history that they're part of, and what the consequences are for their actions in the last, from the last book. I really enjoyed reading this book just because I had so much excitement from reading the first one. I have quite a bias towards it because I had the privilege of meeting Tomi Adeyemi when she came for a book tour that same year. So seeing the author in person, talking about the book, the inspirations behind it, and really having a chance to connect with her made my reading experience of the book the second time, because I read the first book twice, so much more different and more in depth. So when I got my hands on the second novel, I was so excited to get back into it, and she continues the same pace that she had in her first novel, and I feel like we see a lot more character development for Zelly and for Amari, who is her friend that she meets along the journey in book one, just because they've been through so much and they have the weight of their people on their shoulders. So the decisions that they make is not just about how it's going to impact them, but it's also about how it's going to impact on the people that look up to them and are inspired to join along with this journey, this movement that they're being part of. So if you're into fantasy novels or things that have a bit of magic or just general adventure books, I highly recommend checking out the series. So I think she's writing 3 books in total, so check out the first 2 that are out now, and then the next one's coming out. And also, fun fact, this has actually been picked up for a movie adaptation, so it will be on your screens very soon. So the next book that I'm going to be talking about, I actually don't have it in person. I've left it at my uni accommodation, but it's something that is, I think about it every so often, and that's how much of an impact it had on me. The book that I'm talking about is My Sister the Serial Killer, and honestly, just by the title, you can kind of already tell what the story's about. But you think you know until you start reading the pages and you're like, okay, this is a lot deeper than that, the title alone. And I'll insert a picture of the cover page here. That's the first thing that caught my eye when it came to this book, and I wasn't disappointed when I read it. It's like a dark comic novel that follows the story of 2 sisters, one of which is the serial killer. And we're introduced by Adeyemi, who picks up the phone to her sister explaining that she needs her to come to this apartment because, lo and behold, there's a crime scene. She's killed another man. And within the first 2 pages, you find out that this isn't the first man her sister, Ayula, has killed. It's actually the 3rd. And if you've killed 3 people, that makes you a serial killer. So her sister's a serial killer, but she's not a conventional serial killer in that or maybe she is, because she honestly, she has no remorse. And It's frustrating only because every single time she's claimed self-defense in the killings, and to be honest, I think the relationship between her and her sister kind of shows how this has taken place and how it's been allowed to go on for so long. The way the writer's written Korede is that she is quite an enabler towards her sister's behaviour, in that, you know, she's always there to help clean up the crime scenes, always there to help figure out the pieces after what's happened, and this doesn't seem to slow down her pattern of behaviour. So when it comes to a pivotal moment where Korede, so this is not a spoiler, so it says it in the blurb, but Korede has a long-term crush on a doctor at the hospital she works in, and suddenly her sister gets her eye on this person that she has a crush on, and following the sequence of behaviour that happens in the past, you kind of have an idea what could take place within the book. I found that it was really nice to read just because it was quite comical, light-hearted, and it was based in Lagos, Nigeria, and it was just refreshing to read. I also think the story is not just about her being a serial killer and not just about the men that fall victim to you know, her sister's crimes, but really is a story about sisterhood and how blood is thicker than water, and she is willing to do whatever she can to protect her sister, but sometimes that protection can go too far in that she enables her behaviour. The relationship between the two characters is complicated with how in their appearances they're very different. Ayula, who is a sister that's a serial killer, is very beautiful, very, like, she walks into a room and everybody just turns their eyes and can't stop looking at her. Like, she's always just like, in the book she's defined as like almost like the pinnacle of beauty, whereas her sister's on like the complete opposite end. Not that she's ugly, but just she's just never received the same level of admiration that her sister's received all her life. So for her it creates quite a complicated relationship between the two, where it's not a resentful relationship, but it's one where I would say Korede feels a very strong sense of protectiveness over her younger sister, and just a sense of knowing, like, you know, the world is a cold place, but her sister hadn't experienced that. So yeah, I just think it's a really cool book that explores sisterhood and really tries to deliver characters that we don't get to see very often. Like, for example, you know, a black woman that's a serial killer, like, I don't see that as a very common plot line. So in that caught my attention anyway. But also just how fast paced the book is. So if you're someone that likes like something to take its time to build up, this might not be the book. But if you're someone that's like looking for a page turner, this might be the book for you. So I really enjoyed reading that one. So the next book that I'm going to be talking about is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This one here, I think if you look online, it's got a slightly different cover page to this one, but this was a very recent read for me. It's a 1 million copy bestseller, very critically acclaimed. So I was like very intrigued to read what this was about, and if you go online you see like a lot of high praises for it, so I was very excited to read it. So the book's about two characters, Connor and Marianne, who grew up together in the west of Ireland. Growing up, they were from two very different like groups within school. Connor was the popular guy. Marianne had seemingly no friends, and she was not well liked within, you know, her school. But the connection between the two was that Connor's mum actually cleaned at Marianne's mum's house. So that's how the two had their lives kind of, you know, connected. But it was never deeper than that until a point within the novel when they have an awkward conversation, and soon enough things just start to lead into another where they strike up a relationship of sorts. And so the book is about the two of their lives over several years, from that moment within secondary school all the way up until university. So I think even just past university. So the book is centered around friendships, centered around relationships, centered on how two people's lives can be very different and how it can sort of just like unfold over the years, and we follow this. For me, initially, I was really looking forward to reading this book because of all the praise, but in my personal opinion, I didn't enjoy it. So I just want to jump on mid-edit of the video that you're watching right now. Basically, I did actually go on to watch the TV adaptation of Normal People, and I actually have different opinions on that than I did with the book. So I definitely enjoyed the TV version of it far much better than the book, but I just thought I'd say that just in case you might have a similar experience. Maybe it might be worth giving the TV show a go instead. So yeah, that was just a bit of a small recommendation there, but back to the video. And I think the reasons why I didn't enjoy it was that there's no speech marks, so that makes her writing, like Sally Rooney's writing, just really disjointed, and you kind of get lost between what is the actions, what someone's just said. And the other thing that I probably struggled with a bit was the jump in timelines. So 1 minute we're talking about a sequence of events happening now. The next thing you know, in like a few lines later, we're like 5 weeks later. Then we come back to that moment in time, and it's just back and forth. And for me, it was just a bit confusing to stay on track with that, plus the speech marks issue. Overall, when it comes to the characters, I didn't really engage with them as much as I thought I would have. Like, being so close in age to the two characters, like especially when they went through the university stage, I thought that would have been the point where it would have felt more relatable, but I didn't quite relate to the characters the way that I hoped I would have. But that doesn't mean it might not be the case for you, but it just wasn't as good as I thought it would be with all the prizes that I gained. Like, it wouldn't be something that I picked up again or I would buy for someone else. But nonetheless, she's got her praises for reasons. Maybe I just don't see them. Yeah, Normal People, that was a book I kind of enjoyed. Not as much as I thought I would have done. But anyhow, the next book that I want to be talking about is The Wrath and the Dawn. So this is a final recent book that I finished reading, and it's got a very beautiful front cover. It's a story by Renée Ahdieh, and she is a New York Times best-selling author. This is actually a two-part book. The first part I've got here. The second part is this one, The Rose and the Dagger. So after I finished this one in one sitting, like I started it at like 8 p.m. and finished it at like 4 in the morning because I was just I was literally obsessed with this book. I just had to see if I could find the sequel. So that's how I had the second one so quickly. So the first book, The Wrath and the Dawn, follows the story of a young girl, so she's 16-year-old, who volunteers to marry Khalid, the Caliph of Khorasan. And in Khorasan, every dawn brings a new terror to a family. And essentially what happens is a young girl marries Khalid, the Caliph, and by dawn she is murdered. And so in the land, he's one of the most feared people because he brings terror to the people. So for Shazi, she volunteers herself to marry Khalid because her best friend is murdered I believe a few weeks beforehand. So she's set on a revenge plan to kill this murderous king. But what she doesn't expect is to see the real person behind the crown, and the story follows about what happens once she discovers this and the decisions she makes going forth. I was a bit nervous about the book just because I was worried about the pacing in which she falls in love. Like some not romance books, you find they're falling in love with the person in literally the first 50 to 100 pages, despite all the major flaws, i.e. he's a murderer. But this book surprised me. She paced it so well and really took the time to reveal the characters in a way where you couldn't help but fall in love with them despite the major flaws that they had. And so this meant that I was rooting for people I wasn't expecting to be rooting for, and the romance element just like took my heart, ran away with it, stomped on it a few times, threw it back to me, put it back in there, said, now you're gonna have to wait for the sequel. That's the kind of thing that it did to my heart. And I really just enjoyed reading this just because the way she describes the smells of the city, the fabrics, the textures, all of it, you can't help but feel like you're there. And this is just such like a, I wouldn't say call it light-hearted, but it's something where you kind of have to be prepared to just keep turning the pages, and that just made me fall in love with it. So those are my 4 books that I've read recently and quite enjoyed. I've got 3 out of 4 books that I've read and quite enjoyed, and ones I'd recommend. I put the names of the 4 books in the description below so you can have a look as a reference and decide whether you'd want to purchase them. And I've also linked below my Goodreads account, which I'm actually been very consistent and active on. So I refresh that as often as possible on like what books I'm checking out, what I've read so far, and kind of like my thoughts behind it. Using the star system, I'm not yet on the level of like writing a review, but for me, like doing these video vlogs, it's almost like a review in itself. So I hope you get some ideas from some books you should purchase and enjoyed watching the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos, or like and comment below if this is something that you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
When nature starts to